Hi, everyone. Welcome to All Things Metaphysical podcast with Kelly and Gail. I'm Gail. I'm laughing because I just watched the orb fly over my head as we were starting. And it was a pretty big one, just hung out for a few minutes.
It was waiting to be caught on live. It was just like hanging out there. Yes,
So,
I am Kelly. Um, we were talking before the show about how the energy is just really weird and everybody is messing up and falling down and not wanting to get back up. And it just really feels very, very heavy to me still. So I wouldn't call it the highway to hell.
well, but that's the song they keep playing in my head. They keep singing, You're on the highway to hell.
It's the highway to absolute nothingness if we can't pull it together.
It has just been one. I thought last week was bad. That's nothing in comparison to, and I get the feeling I thought things were going to calm down, but I think January is going to be kind of crazy and then things are going to calm down in February.
That's what I've heard, although I really felt like it was going to calm down too.
Hmm.
Um, it's just heavy and it's oppressive, and people are really struggling just to go day to day. I've had so many people tell me in the last week, time is just speeding up. It's just speeding up. I just did this and now I have to do it again, and I only do this once a month. What's going on? And that's kind of concerning to me in a way. We're speeding up for what? Yeah.
What is happening? I don't know. I think things are just getting really, really wacky. That's my clinical term for it. Wacky and wonky.
Wonky and wacky. Yes.
Yeah,
I like it.
the two
Um,
W's.
I don't, every day I go, something's got to give. Really, something's got to give. And I keep hearing, not yet. Yeah.
I was doing one of my other groups on Sunday night, and I got this really kind of high powered channel message because it was Jesus, Maitreya, and Metatron together because they were behind me. And whenever I get messages, they're mostly for humanity and they're mostly to help us shift and things like that. And the gist of the message again was that we need to be the light and that we need to be authentic and that if we do those things, then we're going to succeed in whatever we're here to really do. Because we all signed up to be here at this time now, even though we don't like to acknowledge that. We all agreed to come back. We all agreed to be here. We all agreed to go through this. Otherwise, it wouldn't be happening right now.
Right. Right.
And so I think that that's an important piece to remember is we kind of all signed on for this before we came back.
Even if we're sitting in the dark now going, I changed my mind. I changed my mind. Yeah. Yeah, we did. And I really think it comes down to faith.
Hmm.
And, because I hear bells again. Um, because so many people aren't buying into this. It wouldn't be happening if this wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And you wouldn't be here if you weren't supposed to be here. And they're just not buying it. It's, up to chance for them. And I never understood that because if you look in nature, which I do all the time,
Hmm.
there's a natural order,
Hmm.
there is structure. You can look at a wildflower field, there's still structure there. And you have to acknowledge that you are part of that structure. Even if your purpose, your job is not to be a wildflower, your job is to be a human, you're still
Hmm.
a part of the whole. And people on many levels, and I've talked to a whole bunch of people lately, not by choice, but um, yeah, I try to stay away from large crowds, but it seems like there is very little belief,
Hmm.
very little faith that we can get through this, very little faith that an individual can contribute something worthy. And I think I think that's why I get laughed at a lot by my guides, because I see things like a puzzle, always have my entire life. I see a puzzle and I see how the pieces can fit together and how everything can be perfect and beautiful. And then some idiot over here wants to go the other direction, and it has infuriated me most of my life. I finally come to terms with I can't control that, you know. But for a long time, I was like, how dare you step out of line and ruin my puzzle? No, it could all go like this. We could all be this. And we're just not there yet. We're just not there yet. But people have to find the faith to know that they will get through this heavy energy stuff.
Mhm.
And even people that I've spoken with that don't believe the whole everything is energy thing, even they are saying it feels very heavy. And when I hear that from people who have completely publicly disavowed any feelings about any of this, it really makes me go, yeah. Remember that puzzle I tried to put you in? Yeah.
You know, the word while you were talking that kept popping in my head was disillusioned.
Hmm.
It's like we're all in this space and like none of us want to be here anymore. Welcome to the people who are watching us live. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section and we will answer them. But yeah, I feel I'm not losing my hope and I'm not losing my faith, and I still have belief that things can come to get better. Although, when you listen to a lot of negativity every day coming at you, it's
Right,
really hard to stay in that space.
right,
To always be the one to say, no, we're going to get through this. No, it's going to be okay. Because then who do you go to? Like when you're the one who holds it up for everybody else, and when you start to struggle, then who do you go to for support and to be told that it's going to be okay?
which is probably reason number one why I'm no longer a therapist.
That's probably reason number one where, it's just recently for me that I'm not a therapist. I was a therapist for 30 years.
Yeah,
Now I'm using my clinical skills in a different way, but it's just so interesting to me, you know, that everyone needs cheerleaders, but the people who are the cheerleaders, where do they really go? Who's
right,
their support system?
right,
One of the things that's been told to me a lot, and I don't know if I believe it, don't believe it, but one of the things that people have said to me, well, they're like, you're the healer's healer. You're the one that everyone goes to when they don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, if I look at the past, like so many months, I would say that that's pretty true. I
yeah,
mean, everyone does come to me for something. So it's just really interesting. And then I was trying to think about, well, who do I go to? Who's my support system? I mean, and I have amazing people, you being one of them in my life that I know I could go to who will support me. But sometimes when you're in that, I don't know what other word to use, elevated space where everyone comes to you,
right,
um, there's a responsibility that comes along with that too. And I don't want to say it's a pressure because it's a joy and a privilege to be able to do it. But there is a responsibility that I feel towards the people who come to me to make sure that I give them sound advice and that I'm in an okay space to do that.
right, right. That's the you can't pour from an empty cup thing.
Mhm.
But I think I know so many people just like that, and it's always interesting to me how many times I have this conversation
Mhm.
with someone. When you're always the person that fixes everything or listens to everyone, you always end up feeling that way.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I tried to do a couple of years ago, and I may try it again, was I did a group just for people who were always that person
Mhm.
that, everyone went to, so that there was a safe space to just go and vent.
Okay, so in that group, I've got to ask this question. Who emerged as the person that everyone went to? Because there's
There were
always still going to be one, even in a
there
group like
yeah,
that everyone is still going to go to.
right, and it actually evened out to about 2 or 3,
Okay.
but, it was really interesting, and I disbanded the group, I think 3 years ago now, because you get a group going, and then everybody wants to be a part of it, but then they get tired of it, so they go away. And I just disbanded it.
So the question is, do you think it's because of vibrating at a higher energy draws people to you? I think that it's a couple different things. I think that that's part of it. I think that when you accept your gifts fully and you're authentic in the world and you're consistent, people need that. And then because you're that, then they come to you. Sometimes my frequency is low and people still come to me, but it's because they know that I'm going to be authentic and I'm going to be genuine and I'm going to be present with them. And mostly that's what people want. I could be wrong.
It also has a lot to do with being an empath.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how often on any given day, if I leave my house, some complete stranger will tell me their entire story, their entire life story. It's I don't walk around saying, "Excuse me, could you tell me your life story?" People just find me, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, and I don't leave my house for a week or two. But part of it is the vibration, but I think there's so much more to it because even those days when I've been really, really low, I still can't put gas in my car without someone approaching me. And it is, I say that, and I've said that to people who say, oh, it can't be that bad. And then they come to visit
Hmm.
and they go out with me and they're like, my God, you're a celebrity. No, I'm just an empath, and people approach me and tell me all sorts of things.
I'm finding that a lot. I make a lot of phone calls during the day, and all the people I'm talking to are telling me about how their day's going and what they're struggling with and what's going on for them. So it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, it's really funny.
So this person says, LOL, it's been like that for me for years. I always wondered how people could feel so comfortable telling me things.
Yeah, they do though. You're an empath.
Mhm. The way that I used to explain it to people too is that when babies are born, they're pink, and pink is universal love. And the empaths have all their pink heart energy still. Ours hasn't turned green, and it generally tends to attract energy vampires.
Yeah, and it
It's
does.
like a moth to a flame.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So I hope, does that answer those questions for the people that asked them? Just let us know in the comments section. I love when we have people watching us live because it's really so much fun for us when we get to interact with people and get live questions to answer. Although, don't get us wrong, we could talk about anything for long periods of time and have without anybody watching us. I also just wanted to let people know that this gets replayed on YouTube, but it is now officially an Apple podcast.
Yay.
So, the last two episodes are on Apple, and then every week we do one. I'll add the next episode, so you can just listen to us while you're driving around now in your car, or doing something. So it is now an Apple podcast. If you just type in "All Things Metaphysical Podcast" with Kelly and Gail, it'll pop up.
Yeah.
So, just wanted to put that out there. We're branching out.
Yay.
Yay! So.
I want to ask too, if you are watching the show and you enjoy the show, please share it.
Mhm.
We really want to get more people. We want to reach more people. So it would be very helpful if you guys would share it.
I have a really hard time asking for that.
I do too, but they were telling me to say it, so I did.
Okay. So blame your spirit team.
Well, I have found the last couple of days when
Mhm.
I just listen to what they say and I don't question it and I don't try to argue, it goes a lot easier.
Resistance is futile.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, listeners, what other questions do you have for us this evening? What other things are you curious about or want to know about? One of the things that came up for me too was the difference between tarot and oracle cards. Now, I know for me, most people think this is really funny. I can't read traditional tarot cards. Like, I could read the energy of the cards, but I still People have explained it to me, I don't know how many times, and it doesn't compute, and it never makes sense to me, and I know there's a minor arcana and a major arcana, and there's cups and wands and things like that. But other than that, it never has made sense to me. But give me a deck of oracle cards where there's just like a word on it and an image, and
Yep,
I'm good to go.
yep, yep. Yeah, I collect oracle cards and tarot cards, like well, you collect oracle cards because I like the artwork.
Mhm.
But every once in a while, and this has happened to me throughout my life, I keep them on a table or on a bookshelf. And every once in a while, I'll go around a corner and there will be a deck on the floor with the lid off and one card out. Now, that's pretty specific to be an accident. And, it has happened so often that I just, oh, look, somebody's doing a reading for me. Cool. But I do love the artwork. Some of these cards are so beautiful, I would hang them on my wall.
I know people keep asking me when I'm going to do one, and I'm just like, yeah, eventually.
Yeah, it's that's a really big job to pull a deck together.
Oh, I have more than enough images. It's
You
writing the
do.
guidebook and the
Yep.
messages. I could make about 6 different decks if I just had to use images. So, just interesting.
Yep. You should do your own deck though.
That's what everyone tells me. Any other questions that you guys have? I think that, and I don't know, I won't speak for you, Kelly, but for me, we've talked about this already today, is I don't know how to get out of this wonky pattern. Channel the messages for the book. Yes, I could channel the messages for the book. The way that works for me, though, is I would have to block out like a couple days' time and
Hmm.
just sit down with that's my intention. And I have tried to do it. It's just like it's never quite the right time and it never comes through. I
Right.
channel messages all the time, but when I start to think about an oracle deck or something like that, the messages never come through. I wonder
Good.
if I'm supposed
That's
to
what
work with someone else with the messages. Maybe I'm just supposed to do the artwork.
I think it just isn't time for it to come together yet.
I think it'll be a healing deck, though. I think that'll be the first one.
Well, and I hear that this whole heavy energy is about healing. It's
Uh,
about it- settling with the past
uh,
and learning the lessons and letting it all go so we don't carry it forward.
yeah.
So it's going to be heavy until the majority of humanity has done that. Thanks a lot.
So, can we talk about channeling a little bit?
Sure.
Um, you know, I have written multiple books now, and it's so funny because like I want to sit down and write a book and I'll sit there and I'll just stare at it and stare at it and stare at the blank page. But then like this idea will pop in and I don't know about anybody else, but I always have to have the title first. That's how I write books. I get the title and then the book falls
Yep.
into place around that. So it's just really funny, you know.
Sometimes people can channel without knowing they're channeling. And I had this experience literally earlier today with a veterinarian. and, and she was going on and on and on about, the history of these horses and where they came from. And all of a sudden her eyes got a little bit different. And she was like staring up and she's still talking to me and she's not looking at me anymore. She's looking up here. And
Uh-huh.
I finally touched her shoulder. Oh, what was I saying? And like, we're just going to pretend this didn't happen. But it was obvious to me. And
Uh-huh.
I've seen, especially in coaching sessions, when I was doing a lot of coaching, people will start and they'll, and you know that's not their information.
Mhm.
So it's really interesting to me. And we do it all the time on the show. We just pop out and
Maybe we should have a contest as to who can tell when we're channeling versus just talking. No, just kidding. That would be kind of funny, though. Although I usually say I'm channeling. You don't usually announce it when you are, but
sometimes I don't, they just pull me, it's just like, I'm taking over now, and I've just done it my whole life. So it's like, all right, fine. Yeah.
that's what I love about when I create mandalas, and they're all channeled, but they all come from different beings I channel at different times. So it's always interesting to me that difference in energy when I'm drawing. And some come through so fast. They're like 45 minutes, and everyone's like, how did you do that in 45 minutes? I'm like, because I was in no time because they were channeling. So there was really no sense of time while they were doing it. But, I have some really, which I don't post a lot, but I have some like big mandalas like this big. And there's always one that always sticks in my head. It was Starseed DNA,
Mm,
and it took 5 hours to draw. But like when I open the gate to draw or the portal, they won't let me get up to even go to the bathroom.
yeah.
Like, because they don't want me to break that flow of energy that's coming in. And I'm like, oh my God, it's only 2 hours into this and I really have to go to the bathroom. That was another 3 hours, but it's just interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. I know I'm in the middle of a book that I've been writing for a while,
Mhm.
and I sometimes leave it open on my computer. I
Mhm.
leave the room to go do something, and then I forget that I'm working. So I go back in hours and hours and hours later, and there's something on the computer that I don't remember writing. And that's been the really once I started writing books, I can go back and read books that I've written. I don't remember writing
Mhm.
that. So those things are actually very helpful. It's like, great, write my book for me. Cool, no problem.
Mhm. Makes the writing process sometimes really fast.
It does, but it can also be a little bit confusing.
Mhm.
I read one passage and I go, that doesn't even fit there. Where does that go?
Mhm. So the somebody had responded when I said I get the title first and then write the book. They said I've heard other authors say that as well. And I know my first book, I mean, it was mostly done because I'd been working on it for a long time. And then my friend said, I don't know how you know, you just always know. And I'm like, oh, that's the title.
Yep.
And then, I finished it really quickly after that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
have
that's the way I think you do everything. I really do. Even your mandalas, I look at them and I go, First off, that's portal, and secondly, you didn't come up with that. You were merely the instrument putting it together. And it's so obvious. And then you look at some things that other people are doing and you can tell that it's not. And I think that's interesting as
I think the thing about my artwork in the mandalas that's the most fascinating to me is no matter how many times it's reproduced or copied, the energy is still in it. So I don't know how they're coding that when I create them, but it's fascinating to me. Like whether you look at it on your screen, whether you're looking at the original picture, whether I've sent you a printed out version of the picture, the energy is still in it. And I'm always still fascinated by how that happens.
well. Yeah. I've got I've got your mandalas framed in on various walls in my house.
Mm.
And there is one on the hallway to my bedroom. And I have a cat who will sit there and stare at it. And she just sits there and stares at it. And I wonder where she's going or what she's thinking because I catch her there all the time. And she just sits perfectly still and just stares. It's like, is somebody coming through? I don't know. But it's interesting. And they are very special.
I've been very blessed and fortunate.
Yeah.
Although that is a funny story how I started drawing them. So,
What is that story? You can't leave me hanging like that.
well, you've heard the story. So I was taking an opening to intuition course, and the teacher said we were going to draw gift mandalas for each other. And I wasn't too keen on doing that. I'm like, you can't make me do this. I don't want to do this. I can't draw. I'm not doing. And I held the whole class up for 45 minutes. I'm like, I'm not doing this. And then we did them as gifts. So I got this guy, and mine was this very scientific picture that the person was supposed to put on a record player and watch it go around to rebalance his eyes. He hated his picture because it didn't look like anybody else's in the class. And so then I was a little skittish to draw for a while because I'm like, well, that didn't go so well. But then they were so backed up in my head, I didn't have any other choice. Like I would draw four big
Yeah.
ones a night till like 3 in the morning, and then I would get up and work the next day. It's like once I opened that gate, and people always ask me, like, how many have you drawn in the last 20 years? And there's something like 5,000.
I would imagine. Yeah.
And they're still coming. It's like it's never ending. Like I could sit down and draw today, and I could just sit and draw and draw and draw. My body can't take it as much as it used to because it is more exhausting now to do it with the frequencies and the vibration, but it's just interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's information that is needed.
Mhm.
It's stuff that needs to be brought through. And I think there's a lot of that happening right now,
Mhm.
which is also adding to this heavy energy. Is there is information that needs to be here.
Mhm.
And the only way it can be here is if we clear room for it. And what we're trying to do with all the heaviness is, like I said, healing and
Mhm.
letting it go so that there's room to move forward. You can't move forward if you're stuck in the mud. Trust me, I've tried to lead horses out of floods. It's not going to happen if you're stuck. You have to lighten the load and make a safe passage for the stuff that needs to come through. Um, but I do think that's what is happening a lot.
Yeah, I just, my favorite thing to do, and you know this, is to draw custom ones for people because I love to tap into people's energy with their permission and then represent it in a mandala with everything they need to know to move forward in their life. So that's my favorite thing and one of my favorite ways to use my gift.
Yeah, yeah. It's I've heard people who write music say the same thing, or very similar things. People who write books also
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing. Well, on one of the book tours that I put myself on a couple of years ago, I always end up sitting next to an author who is what I call spiritual curious.
Okay.
You know, and every time, doesn't matter where it is, I end up next to that person. And she usually sees the books that I have on my table, and I always have some children's books too. But it'll always start a conversation, and it just talking about how they get their information and where their stories come from and all this stuff. And she asked me, one last thing I did, she asked me, well, where did you get your children's books ideas? And I said, well, they showed me a movie, a whole series, film format, full color, sound, explosions, animal stuff, everything. They showed me a movie. And I condensed it down for children from that, what I was shown. And she
Mhm.
was like, but that's how it happened. And sometimes I get information, I have a raven that says hello,
Mhm.
and they're always around here. And what I didn't know is my neighbor across the road also has been saying hello to the ravens. So we taught that raven how to talk. And when I first heard it, I was like, who is using the body of a raven to
Mhm.
talk to me? But it's just a raven saying hello.
That's
So
cool.
sometimes we think things are more important or more divine than
Mhm.
they are.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions that our viewers have that they want to know about today or topics that you want us to talk about today? So we could talk a little bit about, I know we discussed something before the show and we're like, should we bring it up? Should we not bring it up? But I guess we should bring it up because we have the time and the space to bring it up.
That's
So
true.
would you like to bring this one up?
Which one? The spellcasting one?
Yeah, that
um,
one.
through coaching and working with a lot of teenage, mostly girls, but some boys too, I get asked a lot about things that they're interested in. And a lot of these kids, they want to know about Ouija boards. They want to know, are demons real? They want to know all this kind of stuff. And someone asked me the other day if it's possible to cast a spell and make it a positive one.
Mhm.
And my response to her was, that sounds an awful lot like doing a ceremony to send love to the universe.
Mhm.
And she said, well, yeah, but we want to do it as a spell. Well, what makes it a spell if you're just trying to do something positive? And her thing was she wanted the pomp and circumstance of a ritual. And
Mhm.
she's read a lot of books on different things, and she thinks she knows how to cast a circle and be protective and do the altar and all this stuff. And she's calling it spell casting. And the more I talked to her, the more I realized what she was doing. If you want to call it spell casting, call it spell casting. It's a prayer. When you are asking a divine being
Mhm.
or help in some area, in my mind, that's prayer. In her mind, it's a spell. So,
In my mind, it's setting an intention.
yeah. So it's something that I know a lot of people are interested in.
Mhm.
A friend of mine practices voodoo, and she gets the questions all the time. Well, why is it Satan worship? It's not Satan worship. It's not. Voodoo is a nature religion at its heart.
Mhm.
Most people practice it for good. Every once in a while, somebody does something bad with it. But you know what? You can do that same thing in any religion, in any practice. But the key with doing any of this is making sure that you add for the highest and best good.
Mhm.
Because when you start, and I questioned her extensively to find out that this was not what she was going to do. When you start trying to control people or
Mhm.
control things or control outcomes, that's when you're teetering in a really, really, really dark space. And you don't want to do that. And I know someone, haven't seen them in probably 15, 20 years, but way, way back when they were in my circle, this woman would cast spells on people.
Mhm.
And she never could figure out why things never worked out for her. It's like you are creating more and more and more karma.
Mhm.
You will never get out of this if you do not stop. But as long as you are setting a clear intention and be honest with your intention, sometimes people say, oh, I'm trying to do this for good. And
Mhm.
what they're really trying to do is, I really like my bank account to fill. Those are two different intentions. Doesn't mean they're bad or good.
Mhm.
It's just two different intentions. Settle on one thing. You want to send love and light to the universe, please, by all means, do. We need it. But don't add a writer to that.
Mhm.
Be pure in your intention. And then later on, if you want to manifest money, go for it. Money is only a tool. It's not a bad thing to want money. But you have to be really clear in your intentions. And if you're trying to mix them up and tag on things to other things that you're doing, it's not going to work.
So I have a funny story about that. In my beginning days, I got whenever all my gifts were coming back, I got really frustrated with someone, and I'm like, I'm going to make a voodoo doll. And then all my friends were like, oh my God, you of all people shouldn't do that. You can get it to work.
Yeah.
But the thing was, is I kept talking about it and I saw this doll get created on the etheric level.
Yeah.
So then, and I didn't want to do any harm because I didn't want to create more karma and stuff. So I just sent the doll that got created support, nurturing, and love, because that's really what the person needed. And anyway, but so it was just really interesting because I kept seeing the doll created. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to hurt this doll in any way. But, my friends were right. I mean, and I didn't really know at that time, like what all my abilities and gifts were. So I was like floored when that happened.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what do you want to do with the doll? It's, in the etheric realm. You have to do something with it.
Right.
And then so after like a couple weeks of like nurturing it and stuff, it dissipated and went away. But I was like, wow, that was really interesting.
Yeah, there are people on the planet right now with an immense amount of power. And, one of the things, I was a kid and I was very angry with some people that went fishing, and they wouldn't take me with them because I know they were fishing, and I would take the fish they caught and feed them to the
Mhm.
dolphins that were following the boat. So I was banned from the fishing boat. And I remember my great grandmother had a wash tub of water, and I sat there and I put my hands around it. And I was like, not thinking, not realizing what I was doing. Storm blew up, the boat capsized. And I went, and my great grandmother said, what did you do? Fortunately, nobody was hurt.
Mhm.
And even the boat was raised and was fine. But that freaked me out. And I was probably 7 or 8 when
Mhm.
that, and it was really intense. So don't do that, guys. Don't do that.
So the question that popped up from this discussion is, what do you think about low-level demons sneaking through your defenses to contact you? I thwarted their efforts, but was surprised they appeared. Well, I think we've talked about this a lot in the last couple weeks. When you open a portal, you open a portal. The good, the bad, the ugly can come through. So you have to be able to decipher which is which and which you're going to pay attention to and which you're not going to let in.
You can also accidentally open a portal
Mhm.
by doing readings or setting intentions without first protecting yourself.
Mhm.
Um, Very ugly thing happened here in this place a couple of years ago. And I literally had to exercise my studio. I mean, a priest came out and everything. Um, and it continued for a while even after that. It was like they would come back and knock to see if they could get back in.
Mhm.
But be very careful. Once they have appeared to you, you have to do a cord cutting ceremony and make sure they do not have access ever again. It is not always, sometimes it is not always as simple as sealing things up and saging the house.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes, if there has been a contact, they can reestablish that contact because they left an energy tracer.
Mhm.
So make sure you, I would take a salt bath. I would sage everywhere and sage you
Mhm.
one full lunar cycle from new moon to new moon, or
Mhm.
from full moon to full moon, wherever you start. And really, really, rose incense is very good. Try to keep everything light and happy where they made contact, because they cannot infiltrate happiness. Rose is the scent of Mother Mary, and she is a supreme galactic being, regardless of what the Christian church says. But her scent is rose, and she will also protect you. There are different deities you can call in, but before you start inviting more things in, make sure that you do the cuttings. And so you did good.
So hope that answered your question. Kelly, are there any last things that you want to talk about today or you want to share today?
You know, I want to respond to this person saying after they pushed this away,
Okay.
they were told it was a test. And that is possible at different levels of your spiritual journey, that you will have an option of going down this road or this road. Be careful though, because sometimes when you're talking about demons, even low level demons, if you go into it like, oh, well, it was just a test, I passed my test. Who might be telling you it was a test is just a higher level demon. So be really, really, really careful. Anytime anyone mentions a demonic entity of any level, you really, really, really need to be consistently putting out the good there. So hopefully it did go away, and you're good. It's just you have no idea how many demons I've had to get rid of doing paranormal investigations. It's just it always comes up, and sometimes they're really not a demonic entity, even low level. Sometimes they're just a negative thought form that can come through. But if it comes back, please get someone in your house to get rid of it for good.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think with that, we will call this. So the person said cord cutting, and I was completely surrounded by angels afterwards.
Cool.
So awesome. So I think with that, we will call this an episode for today. We will see you guys all again next week. And please keep letting us know if you have topics that you want us to talk about. You can reach out to Kelly, you can reach out to me. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.